from the BBC World Service in association with ABC and All India Radio. This is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell in London, where protesters here have been telling the country about climate change emergency this week and demanding actions from politicians. Roads near where I am at the BBC here are blockaded, and we've covered on Stumped before efforts that cricket has been making to become a greener sport. It is possible to all do our bit.
You won't get too much green in Australia. It's a sunburned country. And we've got a few sunburnt Aussies that are doing pretty well. Cameron Bancroft tees off for Durham, the new captain, and gets 100. David Warner, strike rate of 145 in the IPL. The Aussies are warming up for the World Cup and the Ashes. Look out.
Yes, absolutely. I'm Sunil Gupta for All India Radio in Delhi. I've just returned from Singapore last night, and let me tell you, every time I go to that amazing country, I'm even more amazed. I have absolutely no idea how they organize it so beautifully. Everything like clockwork.
Oh, you sound like you've come back very relaxed, Sunil, as well. Jim is fired up for the World Cup. I can hear that. And yeah, a lot has been happening. But yes, we are going to start with the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup because it is now less than 6 weeks away. And this week, England, Australia and India all named their provisional 15-man squads for the tournament, throwing up a good few talking points for us to have a bit of a mull over. So first off then, England and, well, strong feelings, shall we say, surrounding the possible inclusion of Sussex fast bowler Jofra Archer. Now, Archer's made a real name for himself on the T20 circuit with his eye-catching performances, which has led to many calling him an X-Factor bowler. Archer was born in Barbados, but only recently qualified to play for England after the England and Wales Cricket Board reduced the residency requirements from 7 years to 3, which you might say they did that with Archer in mind, perhaps. Now, Archer hasn't been included in England's preliminary squad, but he is included in a wider 17-man pool for a one-off game against Ireland and then 5 ODIs against Pakistan that follow, all in the lead-up to the World Cup. So what is so special about him? Here's his fellow Barbados-born fast bowler, Tino Best.
I think he can be as good as Ben Stokes, honestly. Freddie Flintoff, he's a wonderful talent. I hope that he gets in and he gets an opportunity. I think he's a cricketer and not just a T20 cricketer or a limited overs cricketer. But I think Jofra would add a lot more depth to the England side, and he's a wonderful talent and a terrific human being as well.
So that's why England are so keen to take a look at him in this series before the World Cup. Archer has an English father and holds a British passport, but his selection, let's say, hasn't gone down particularly well amongst some of the England fast bowlers who could lose their place to him. Now, I'm not sure how much of that is down to a sort of patriarchy or questioning the legitimacy of him representing England, as perhaps some headlines have made out with ideas of whether bowlers think it's fair or not that he should be selected. It seems more about suddenly bringing in a new bowler when the side has been doing so well in the last 12 months. Now, all-rounder Chris Woakes was asked this week if it was fair that Archer could replace someone who has been part of the squad for 3 years. Well, here's his response.
It's the nature of international sport and professional sport. I think we take it on the chin that selection is part of and parcel of the game and the job that we do. So fair is probably not the right word. It probably wouldn't be fair, morally, but at the same time, it's the nature of international sport, and if someone was to miss out, it would be incredibly unlucky. But that's down to the selectors.
Right, so Woakes hasn't been the only England squad member to, talk about Archer's inclusion and wonder about it. And fellow fast bowlers Mark Wood and David Willey have expressed, reservations. And these are guys, of course, all worried about their place in the side. The biggest thing seems to be, the question around this is, could it disrupt England?
Well, I think their captain, Owen Morgan, will want to bury this very quickly. He's a pragmatic person, and like quite a few have been throwing their opinions around on this question, other than the bowlers who probably could miss out. Let's face it, if England can pick Jofra Archer and he is in the best team, he should play. He's available, and I don't see any problem with this at all. So they need to get on with the fact that he is legitimate, he qualifies, and if he's good enough, he plays. I don't think there's any issue, really, and people shouldn't make an issue of it. Otherwise, it will be a distraction for England.
Yeah, I was intrigued by the word moral or morally wrong used by Chris Woakes. I mean, I haven't heard that word for a long time in cricket, I don't think. But I completely agree with Jim. I mean, if it's legitimate and it's allowed by law, then the best team should play. And I can understand, I mean, all of them feeling worried about their places in the team. But at the end of the day, they represent England. And I'm sure they'd love to see England win, using Archer or without him, whichever, rather than see England lose and not win a World Cup, at least since the time it started. So I can understand both sides of it. But, it just brings me to a larger question. This whole thing about, domicile and whether it's 3 years or 7 years or whatever it is, what is right, what is wrong. I mean, I remember, I think it was Britain who brought in, if you remember, many years ago, Zola Budd from South Africa and fast-tracked her into the Olympic team, and Greg Rosetsky from Canada, the tennis player, fast-tracked him into the Davis Cup team. And that was literally in months. I think that's wrong. But if there's a rule and law that allows this to happen in 3 years, and he has a British father, I mean, so many South Africans have played for England. They've had, British fathers and South African mothers or vice versa. New Zealanders, Ben Stokes, all these guys. So I think it'll blow over.
Well, let's take a look at India's provisional squad of 15 now, because there was no place for wicket-keeper Rishabh Pant or Ambati Rayudu, while KL Rahul, Dinesh Karthik, Vijay Shankar and Ravi Jadeja all got the selector's nod. Now, Rahul Tandon, our reporter, has been gauging opinion on the streets of Kolkata.
I think it's fairly reasonable, pretty balanced. I mean, you leave some, you take some. You can't take all.
Yeah, we're happy with it. They've proven before the games as well. So I think they have a good chance.
Rishabh Pant a bit unlucky, I will say, because seeing his capability and ability, he should have been selected for the squad. But anyway, our masterpiece Dhoni is there, so we will not require, hopefully.
I also play cricket, so my favorite player is Dhoni. So I think India can win the World Cup. I don't think Rishabh Pant should be in the World Cup.
I hope they make the knockout stages. I hope they do. They're very temperamental players, very temperamental. You cannot depend on any batsman with a guaranteed score of, say, 50. Listen, I'm not a critic, but looking at the squad, I think it's the best we have right now. Because if you take the whole IPL, select players name-wise, you wouldn't find a better squad than this. That's all I'll say.
I think Suresh Raina should be in, because he's a quite experienced player, because he has played 2-3 World Cups. Let's see new players, how they perform.
So that's the view from Kolkata. What about our man in Delhi? Sunil, can India win the World Cup with this squad?
Now, I'm going to start off by being extremely diplomatic and very, very politic and say that this is a very, very open World Cup, perhaps the most open since 1992, when last this format was played, where you play every other team, which to my mind actually is absolutely right. So I think any team can win. Quite honestly. Now, India, well, as that gentleman said on your clip, I hope India will reach the knockout stages. I think you'll understand what I mean by that. And I'll tell you, the problems with India have been the same problems we've had for a long time. And I will club them or summarize them as birth and death. We're not good starters. And we're certainly not good at the death. We are not able to control batsmen, the opposing team, when they're batting at the death. We always give away too many runs. And we don't have that ability to kick ourselves up, to a score of 350 when we normally end up, say, something like 325, even if we've done really well and we've got 5 overs to go with about 290 on the board. We don't have that finishing kick. And I think that is going to hold us, in some jeopardy when we're in England. I would be personally very surprised if this Indian team makes it to the semi-finals.
Oh, Sunil, that's a strong view coming from you.
It's
probably a balanced one.
Well, we just have too many players who are too long in the tooth. As I said, there are 5 or 6 of them who played the 2013 Champions Trophy. And, at the end of the day, if you look at the England team, there's nobody who played that. I mean, it's a changing game, the white ball game. You've got to have different sorts of players. Look at that child who spoke about Dhoni. I mean, Dhoni's been around for centuries. And he's still there. I firmly believe he's the right man. But we don't have, I don't think we have a game plan. I don't know. I don't think we have a plan how to bowl at the beginning, how to control it at the end, both batting and bowling. And we don't have the X-factor player. We don't have an Andre Russell, somebody who can really kick on and give us that extra finishing touch, as I say. So I think that's really going to be our problem in England.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Well, staying with the World Cup, it is time for the latest instalment in our countdown to this year's showpiece. We're revealing our choice of the 10 best matches in the tournament's history. And this week, it's time for...
Number 6.
Yes, at number 6, we're going back to 2011, when India became the first team to win the World Cup on home soil. Here's commentator Mark Pugach taking us through what was a dramatic climax.
4 to win. There's Mullarathan, who's about to retire. Of course, Kuliraseka bowls. Dhoni wins the World Cup for India with the most enormous 6 over long on and grabs a stump in celebration and then hugs Yuvraj. Well, what a way to win the World Cup by smashing a huge 6 over long on, and India win the World Cup by 6 wickets. Dhoni finishes 91 not out, Yuvraj 21. Let the party begin in India.
Well, many congratulations. You were absolutely brilliant tonight, and what's a relief it is for you?
Well, of course, because there are quite a few decisions that I took in this game. If I'm not on the winning side, first question, why Srishant, not Ashwin? Second question, Yuvraj Singh in form, why he didn't bat at number 4? So there are plenty of questions. It's good to win. And I believe, that was one thing that was definitely pushing me to do well in this game. So, it feels really good. Jokes apart, I think, the last 1 month we have done really well. Spent time on the field together, spent time in the dressing room. I think it's a memorable 30 to 35 odd days that we have spent together. And this was the goal that we wanted to achieve. And each and every individual gave his 100%.
Well, that was India captain MS Dhoni speaking to a jubilant nation on the outfield at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai after his brilliant unbeaten 91. Won the World Cup for India for the first time since 1983, beating Sri Lanka in the final. Now, Sunil, Gupta, you and I were both there on that night, and I think it might be something of an understatement to suggest that you must have pretty fond memories, because, of course, we heard in the commentary the climax, that dramatic winning moment, but it sort of doesn't quite tell you the story of the whole match and day, does it?
No, indeed it doesn't. And yes, indeed I was there. And I can tell you, I probably said the same thing on radio that Mark was saying, because it was a dramatic moment. It really was. But the funny thing, Ali, when you're doing commentary, you're living in a sort of schizophrenic world. On one hand, you're trying to be as objective as possible in seeing it through a different lens. And then on the other hand, there is the Indianness inside you, and you want India to win. And, it was, if you remember what happened during the game, it went up and down until Dhoni came along, and along with Yuvraj and with Gambhir steadied the innings and so on and so forth. But the thing about the Wankhede Stadium is that you're almost in the middle of the crowd. You're not sort of perched on a hilltop somewhere. So you can feel and sense that buzz around you. So there's both the sensation of being a commentator and a spectator. And I think that was absolutely terrific. Yes, it was an enormous day in Indian cricket, and certainly in my life.
What about, though, the coach Gary Kirsten, because he somehow helped to mastermind this victory for India, and we've managed to catch up with him. Here he is with his thoughts and memories.
I think we'd had a kind of a tournament where we were a little bit up and down through our batting and our bowling. We hadn't had the perfect game. And when we got into the knockout stages, we were either bowling or batting really well. And the final was not dissimilar. We didn't bowl particularly well. We went out to bat, realizing in a World Cup final to chase that score, is always a tough ask. But I was kind of quietly confident that we had the kind of batting lineup that someone got going, we could make a play. And then obviously, Dhoni, who had not had a big World Cup up until then, cometh the hour, cometh the man. That's his platform, that's his stage, and he just embraced it and played an unbelievable knock. Obviously, a great supporting act of Gautam Gambhir as well.
And after the match, of course, you were hoisted aloft. There's some great photos of you on the shoulders of the players. That must have been very special.
It was a bit embarrassing, to be honest with you. I've always viewed coaching as it's not about the coach, it's always about the players, and you act as a supporting role and try and build the environment up as best you can to help the players thrive. That's really the role you play, and I thought I'd played over the 3 years. So, with incredible gratitude that, that's the emotion that they felt. But I told her very quickly, get me down.
Do you know what? Well, that was Gary Kirsten speaking to our reporter Sam Sheringham. I was on the outfield right by Gary Kirsten when he was hoisted aloft. He did look a little bit sheepish to start with, but I'm sure he then did allow himself to enjoy it. And there was this mob of people on the outfield, and police or security guards had to use this rope to try and rope off the players. But they, of course, started doing this lap of honour. The police had to then break out into jogs at some point, trying to sort of keep a rope around these huddles of players because there were photographers, journalists, and probably a few rogue spectators, I'm sure, trying to get close to their heroes who had invaded onto the pitch. So now, do you think that the fervour around that Indian victory in 2011 somewhat secured the future of 50-over international cricket?
Well, certainly. I mean, I never thought it was in jeopardy, quite honestly. But certainly for India, it was a big moment. After that, I think India just won the 2013 Champions Trophy, which again, if you remember, was a very truncated tournament. But yes, I think it was a big moment for India, whether just 50 over or the fact that the white ball game really made its mark, because after 1983, people had been wondering, when is India going to win next? When is it going to win next? Remember, I've said this so often, India has the largest pool of players, combined than any other country. So at some point of time, I think that actually came through. To my mind, actually, it was actually the start of the rise of Virat Kohli. He played a very short knock, 35 of about 40, 50 balls. But he came in when India had lost Sehwag for naught and Tendulkar for 18.
Yeah.
And that's really losing two big players. And he came in along with Gambhir, steadied the innings, put on about 80 or 90 runs for the third wicket. I think that really, to my mind, I look back, I think that was the making of Virat Kohli and what he subsequently has become for India.
And I'll finish by reminding you of the words of the 22-year-old Virat Kohli, because he was one of those who was carrying around Gary Kirsten and then Sachin Tendulkar on their shoulders. He said famously now that Sachin has carried the burden of our nation for 21 years. It was time to carry him on our shoulders today. Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Stumped on All India Radio. You can keep in touch with us throughout the week on Twitter via @BBCWS Sport using the hashtag BBC Stumped. Thanks to my co-hosts Sunil Gupta and Jim Maxwell, and to you for listening. Join us again next time. Bye-bye.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.